Welcome to this edition of the program Weekend Review, where we have strategic review of issues that fill the media space between the 19th to the 23rd of March 2018. My name is Anthony Momodi, welcoming to Television Nigerian. On today's edition, we'll be looking at very salient issues that have made the rounds and have given us issues to discuss, and topics also that will be discussed on the Television Nigerian's other programs, talking about issues of the moment, where they discuss Not Too Young to Run, how realistic this is. We'll be looking at that, the comments of Kabiru Umar, who was the guest, and also we have the Patriots that looked at subsistence farming, how we can move from it to mechanized farming, also will be on review. Then Youth Today will also be reviewed, where the political systems in Nigeria and challenges and solutions was also discussed on that particular show. We'll be looking at that and the current issues that have made this week very thick, from the Dapchi Girls release to the fact that the 2018 budget will be passed in April. We'll be looking at that. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back from that break, I'll be introducing my fine line of guests that will be doing the review with me.
Speaking of the Not Too Young to Run bill, first of all, how realistic is it, especially in a terrain like Nigeria?
It is realistic to the extent that the leaders and the policymakers allows it, to be realistic. Ultimately, we all know the extent of work that has gone into the Not Too Young to Run bill from the point of initiation, both in the House of Reps and the Senate, and then subsequent submission to the State Houses of Assembly. And then today it has been presented to the President for his assent. It is progressive, and it is, of course, consistent with natural justice, equity, and fairness. You take, for instance, a situation where the age limit for voters is 18, and then at 18 you can vote, but you cannot be voted for.
All right, welcome back from that quick break. Let me do the introductions. To my left, I've got a pro-democracy convener in the person of Rio Dare Atoye in the studios with me. Nice to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
And to my right, I've got a seasoned journalist in the person of Chris Onogbegu right here in the studios. Chris, nice to have you join us.
It's a pleasure.
All right, we'll kickstart our weekend review with the programs I mentioned earlier, one of them being Issues of the Moment, where Not Too Young to Run, the challenges facing it, and how realistic it is, will be looked at. We had our guest, Kabiru Umar Farah, making comments as regards the Not Too Young to Run bill and how realistic it is. Haven't heard his comment and also your view as regards Not Too Young to Run. How realistic do you think this push or this movement is?
For me, it's a process, and that's exactly how we have to put it. It's a process. Something has been achieved, a milestone that we've had a kind of a constitutional recognition of lowering the age bar of those who are entitled and those who should vie for offices in the country. You see, the benefit of that is that we have been able to use the constitutional amendment process to galvanize sufficient interests of Nigerians. Now, the factual aspect of this will only be determined based on the numbers that we're likely to have in the 2019 general elections. For me, it's not sufficient really to say not too young to run, because it should also mean not too young to lead, and also not too young to demonstrate capacity, not too young to stand in the gap for your nation, and not too young to make sacrifices for your nation. These are part of the things that should be a follow-up to this. But within the framework of what has been done so far in terms of achieving some constitutional amendment to accommodate a greater number of Nigerians who may be willing to aspire, I think it's a strategic mobilization, but the success of that mobilization will be determined by the number of young Nigerians who will be participating in the 2019 general election. And this is one thing that the youth must now do, to show that, look, we didn't just agitate for this not too young to run in a vacuum. We did not just agitate for it simply because we just want it for the sake of having it. We are also ready to demonstrate capacity that we want to participate in the process and have a nation that works, that can serve the interests of young Nigerians.
All right, lots of people have said the not too young to run bill movement, whatever you decide to call it, is a very strategic move by the elites to ensure that their siblings, their children keep on having that edge, that advantage. Do you see it from that point of view?
Before I answer that, I want to go back to years back when the likes of Gowon, Obasanjo, and the others were ruling. Even though they were military guys, they ruled this country when they were very young. Even the Zik, the Azikwe, and the Awolowo and Co, they were very young. So I don't know why people are bringing this up. Just that they got it wrong. They got it wrong along the way. They allow the older people that are supposed to be telling their children test by moonlight to take over. And it is funny to hear young guys clamoring for the same set of people to continue in office when they can actually vie for office by themselves. You can see what happened in France. Michael, how old is he? What does it take? We know that George Okonjo is older, okay, but I think he's within the young, not too young to run. Right. So I don't know why they are clamoring for that. In the first place, I think anybody can vie for any office in Nigeria. Then back to your question, I think I also see it as I don't think it is a conspiracy by the
elites to have their children have an advantage.
I think the youth got it wrong. They got it wrong. That is how I see it. They decide they don't see themselves as good enough to vie for offices. That is why we see the older people coming up.
So let me quickly chip in something. You said something fundamental, but that needs correction.
Okay.
When you said that people like Gowon, people who became president at the age of around 31, 32, and some person probably maybe below that. And one thing not taken into consideration is that there is a constitution that sets age barriers for those who can aspire into office. For you to aspire into the president's level that Gowon got at the age of, at a very tender age.
I think it's 29.
So he's 45 now. Yes, okay. Now, if Gowon got it at 29 or 32, now what I was saying now is that you cannot get it except you are 45. So the constitution has set the limit. So the struggle was to also liberate it, to suit the pattern of when Gowon was there. So that, you see, when you have lost something for a while, it's going to take a serious battle and a serious struggle for you to be able to regain what you've lost. We lost quantum of time simply because we had a military interregnum incursion into our democratic order. So the military coming into power bastardized a whole lot of things without giving access to young men. Although we have some of young fine military officers also participated in government work, there is no that connects with the critical mass of people, and that's what's really the most important thing. So the young Nigerians felt isolated, but the advent of democracy, there has been a continuous struggle, and a good number of young Nigerians at the point in time also participated in 1999. But you see, what happened was, there is the nation has not sufficiently addressed the issues that pertain to young people in terms of addressing unemployment and what have you. It's not as if young people don't really have access to power, not participated in power. Really.
All right, let's go to the next flagship program, which dealt talking about the Patriots. They looked at the agriculture sector.
How are we still at the subsistence level?
It is important to know that when we're talking about agriculture, it's not just the crops, but you also talk about what happened after the production of the crops.
Okay.
Where will the crops go? And how will they move from where they are produced to where they are needed, internationally or locally? Now, the biggest issue we have in this country is that the farmers, even the subsistence farmers, if encouraged, they produce what cannot move easily to the market. Infrastructure development is not there. You produce, in a particular case in the north, you find that a tomato farmer will produce the packaging, the bag to put the tomato is even costlier than the tomato. Sometimes they abandon it in the farm because there is not easier way of bringing the tomato to the market. You now also you suffer in the hands of people, the so-called middlemen, whereby they decide how to sell this product. Now, at the massive production of particular products in Nigeria, at the end of the day, if there is no ready-made market and there's no guaranteed price, the following year the farmers will be discouraged to farming.
Why is it impossible or proving difficult for us to move into mechanized farming, which is larger and more productive? All right, for you, looking at the fact that when you talk about agriculture, lots of people, this government came with the idea of trying to diversify the economy, and agriculture was one of the key points. Why has it been impossible for us to move from subsistence farming to mechanized farming?
The reason is because government is not taking, there are some things they don't take serious. I don't believe that we are doing mechanized farming in Nigeria.
Okay.
We are still relying on our grandfathers, our mothers in the villages to feed this country. And we are very lucky that they are still very strong. That's why we still have food in this country. A serious country, we go into mechanized farming. Even me, as a journalist, I'm also thinking towards that mechanized farming. There's serious money in it. The reason why every time we complain about unemployment, and we're not doing anything towards that, I bet in the past, if I stand to be corrected, in the past, when you finish from school, they push you to the farm.
Okay.
And they pay you the way they will pay somebody in the bank. So in other words, people were interested in farming. And I think that is what we should be going back to. After sports, that can create employment. Farming should be the next. I bet you if you pay a graduate more than if you pay them doing farming more than somebody working in CBN, I bet you many people will go into farming. Especially when you create an enabling environment.
Okay.
You give them good flats, give them everything, make them comfortable. Many people will go into farming.
All right, for you, what is hindering Nigeria moving from
I think
subsistence farming to mechanized?
It's a multiple of issues. And
Okay.
let us not get something wrong. Because of the level of technology and knowledge, subsistence farming has been appreciated.
Okay.
There are countries without land and they've been practicing agriculture successfully. Let's go to the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden. You don't need to really go into mechanized farming if you don't have the land for a nation to survive. What they are producing in Norway, in terms of some of the products, they're producing on a large scale in such a, what I mean large scale is, it works this way. Individual, because you don't have land, you harvest your own produce, you have a market produce board, and they're able to bring it together. But what they've been able to do is to introduce the small scale technology that will help small holders, farm holders, for them to be able to produce little things in a large quantity. Now, mechanized farming, yeah, we have the land to do it in Nigeria, and a whole lot of people are doing it, but it's not sufficient because the greatest employer of labor in Nigeria is still agriculture. That is employing between 60 to 70% of the population, or the number of Nigerians who work in one way or the other, the working population. Yeah. So now, the more than 70-80% of that same population who are within the agricultural sector are not practicing mechanized farming, and also even the ones who are practicing subsistence farming lack the technological application for them to be able to get the best out of it. So it's something we can balance. You see, it's a blessed, Nigeria is a blessed nation that can balance between mechanized farming and subsistence farming, but bringing the application of technology for us to have food subsistence, to have food security, and be able to export to different part of the country. And it's a big win for us if we can take that, and it still remains one of the things we just have to do as a nation.
In some climes, some people say our problem is leadership problem, like we need individual personalities. Some say it's a system. So if we look at the mechanic that will come in, do you think we need a particular person to come and solve all our problems?
You see, our major challenge in Nigeria is that we are trying to adopt what is not in connection with our culture. You see, the political system that we adopted from the US and the Britain is against, there is a conflict between the new political system and the old one we used to be. If you check, history has it that before the coming of the Europeans, there was a proper system working in Nigeria. Where you see in the north, you see the emir working all down. They have the cabinet, they have everything working well. They trade even going with no language. They move from year to year to trade and they do better. So there was a system. Now, the Europeans came and they are compelling us. Psychological, work was done, like making you feel inferior to them, and then trying to copy their own. Where you see their political subsystems, their substructures that must come together to form a system. Like the media, it's a subsystem. The government institutions, subsystems, political parties, religious groups, civil society, NGOs, etc. All those ones must come together. Even protestation, that people go to the street and protest, is part of the system. So if in any way those subsystems are not functioning the way they should, the systems will not work well.
All right, the last program we will be reviewing, talking about youths today, they looked at the fact that the political systems in Nigeria, these challenges and solutions. The main mention of the fact that when we try to copy a political system, we do not bring it back home and customize it to fit the needs and challenges facing our political structure. Do you agree that that could be one of our biggest undoing?
Yeah, I think we are very unique when it comes to our own political system. We are very unique. Despite the fact that people see it as we're doing the wrong thing, but we are very unique in the way we do things in this country. And for the youth, just like what we said about not too young to run, it's almost the same thing. It is difficult for the youth to participate because we believe they are not financially buoyant. Before you can go into politics in Nigeria, you must be very buoyant before anybody will listen to you, and that is the undoing of the youth. Even if for instance, if I come out now, people would rather go after a money bag who is far older than me than to support me to be there. So it's going to be it's going to be difficult for the youth to really aspire or to come into office. That is one of the problems they are having with finance.
Okay, let's look at for you talking about our political systems in Nigeria. What do you think has been the greatest undoing? Do you agree it's the fact that we just borrow political cultures from other nations and not customize it to the Nigerian need?
Yeah, even if we borrowed kind of a political culture, for instance, the kind of democracy we practice. The unfortunate thing is that we don't even practice it based on in the system and manner by which they also do it in these developed these nations that we borrow from. For instance, check our political system, our democratic setup. You realize that we're trying to marry a lot of things together, which we cannot get results. Trying to infuse a small part of the British system into a larger part of an American system. Yeah. We operate a presidential system a presidential democracy that is akin to America. We operate it at federal and state level, and at local government, we're operating a parliamentary system at local government level. And when you look at all this, these are part of the things that are inimical to how we practice democracy. You can't bring in different strategies in culture that doesn't even suit your own. What we should have done is to look at our own peculiarity and see how we can blend them into whatever thing we have to plan. It has to do based on research, development. It must be based on due diligence. And in addition, based on what my brother said about not having the way the challenges in even contesting elections. These are some of the things we're going to witness ahead of 2019. Young people are not empowered for them to be able to vie for office. But we should look for an alternative. What are the alternatives? Is how we can aggregate our effort, come together, and see how we can propel one another. we may not have a reasonable opportunity in 2019 because what the young people did now was to go into different political parties. And it's been so very difficult for them now to harmonize effort, to harmonize, to have a common front, to be able to engage the system and see if they can help one or two. See, it must be a propelled thing, it must be a deliberate effort that if you want to take over power, you must organize yourself and look for those who can do it for you. These are part of the things we just have to do as young Nigerians. But while we're in March, we still have like 6 months or more to be able to organize ourselves. If we're able to do that, maybe by organizing conferences, meetings, and see that, okay, in this state, let us get some of those persons, let's unite behind them, then probably we'll be able to surmount this challenge. But if it's within the dominant political parties, PDP, the APC, it's going to be really, really difficult for young Nigerians. And in addition, let me quickly put it, there are certain things that we have an advantage in using this technology. For instance, the failure of the current government in fighting corruption. Technology can help us to solve a greater percentage of the issue of corruption. And this is an area where young Nigerians have an advantage. And these are some of the things we should be advocating and be working to. So we can surmount our challenges only if we can be very diligent in how to solve that.
All right, having rounded up our review of the flagship programs on television in Nigeria, talking about the Patriots, issues of the moment, and Youth Today. I will go for another quick break. When we come back from this break, we'll be looking at the current trending issues and give a very constructive analysis.
Television Nigeria, broadcast beyond boundaries.
All right, welcome back from that break. It's time for us to look at the big bang stories for the week. One of them being the release of the Dapchick Girls, 105 of them released, plus a boy. And also one of the big stories making the rounds is the federal government suit to seize Ike Ekwerimadu's 22 houses or mansion, depending on which way you want to go. They will also be putting our searchlight on the 5 million naira bounty placed by the Kogi state government to fetch the killers that committed the crime over the weekend. And also we'll be looking at INEC's task to begin the recall process of Dino Melai is also on board, and we'll be looking at the alleged 11 soldiers that were killed in Kaduna, but we'll have the defense headquarters coming out to say that's not true. So those are the stories we'll be looking at for the week. But let me begin with you. We've got the Dapchick Girls, finally 105 released, and it's alleged that 5 others are dead. How did you see this breaking news for the week?
We just like I said earlier, we are very unique. We are a very funny country. That is why some of us cannot survive outside this country. It is really funny. This is the fastest, if I'm not mistaken, adoption and release of adopted people. This should be the fastest. I'm really surprised. I think it is unfair for us to be playing politics with everything in this country. I remember this Yanya Road. There was a time people were just killing people until people started protesting before they came and did something about it. Back to this Dapchick. In the first place, are they supposed to be kidnapped? Because we don't value life in this country. Apologies to the government. We don't value life. If one American is in trouble, the American government can bring an helicopter to that particular place with policemen to save that person. But we, 100 persons, 200 persons, and we don't care. We play politics with their lives. Then there is no amount of compensation that will be enough for those girls that have died. No amount. The family will always remember those girls, because who knows, maybe they will be the
breadwinners of the family.
Breadwinners. And so I think there's no amount that will be okay for them.
All right, for you, for the alleged girls that probably are feared dead, the 5 of them, how sad could the story be, and what do you think the government and the people of Nigeria can do to, suit the pains of these families?
It's quite unfortunate that we have to get ourselves to this level. I'm pained simply because people have decided to take politics to the realm of a satanic enclave. To the extent that we now believe that using the lives of girls to play what we call kalu politics is now the order of the day in our nation. I pray that God will demand from those who did this the lives of these girls from them. They were not deserved to be kidnapped. They are ordinary Nigerians that deserve the best. They are schoolgirls who ordinarily should be in their school even at this moment. There is a huge conspiracy going on in this country. I don't want to comment deeply about it for now because I know we are going to pay for every aspect of anything we do. The day of reckoning is coming for everyone. There is nothing you sow as human beings that you not reap. And let me say it very clearly to the people in authority that they have to be very careful the way they handle some of these things. The way and manner you kidnap 100 girls, they are not 100 chickens. And again, you return them in another kind of a funny and conspiratorial arrangement. And all this thing that's going on. And they think simply because what is really power? Vanity upon vanity. And we are seeing all this kind of makeup, all this kind of control, contrived conspiracy. And in the process, we've lost precious souls. But I know one day people will pay for it. But I believe that a nation should give compensation to the families of those girls, those ones who have died. Simply because if government can pay ransom to their abductors, much more is for us to attend to the families of those girls. But that will not say that sinners will go unpunished.
All right, let's go to the next big issue of the day. Was when we had the federal government file a suit to seize 22 of Ike Ekweremadu's mansions. For you, do you think it's politically motivated just to ensure that probably opposition party, the PDP, do not have enough resource to push for the 2019 general elections?
In the first place, somebody is supposed to own up to
22
houses. When I first came to Abuja, I know of one man that owns 39 cars and he works with FCTA. Before going to work, he won all the cars. You can imagine the foolishness. Do you know how much it would cost a mansion if you use that money to start a business, just like where we are now? Somebody created it. If the owner of this place have gotten mansions everywhere, do you think some of you will have been employed? This is what we are saying. They should go to other countries and see how it's because they don't pay property tax. That is why anybody can own a building anywhere. Very soon they will start building on top of the sea. Then back to Ekweremadu, he's not the first person. We have so many of them.
So do you think it's because of Putin?
He's political. He's political. I know of a local government chairman who's close to this.
All right, let's go to the next big story, talking about Dino's recall to Kickstart. For you, finally, do you think this is the right way to go as we grow in our democracy?
For me, and I think it's an exercise in futility. But before I latch on that, I just want to say the one against Ekweremadu, my brother just said that it's a sort of a distraction, a kind of a witch hunt. I'm not saying Ekweremadu is not guilty or guilty. He has said it's not true.
Okay.
It's good for the federal government to actually prove it, but it's something that is late in the day because it's an election year, because of the reordering of election and what NAS is likely to do, and they are looking for every opponent to get back at them. But you know the problem is that they are not so wise politically. People on the other side managing it because we're going to make this man popular, and there is a way that the sentiment will be building around him and they're making him bigger. The winner of this is going to be Ekweremadu himself because you don't even have all the time to be able to prosecute him. Very soon yourself will be so consumed in the politics of the day. So back to Dino Melaye, I think it's also another distraction. We may not, as young Nigerians, we may not be too happy, too encouraged by Dino's approach to politics. That's in terms of lifestyle or whatever. But what is personal is personal. It may also not reflect very well on the dynamics of politics in terms of how young people should perceive how their leaders should be. Fine at that. But the Senate has said something that we operate a very funny constitution. And the constitution has made it very clear that even after all these things, you still name the Senate to confirm if the process is okay or not.
Is that why you say it's futility?
Yes, the Deputy Senate President made it very clear to INEC and others that look, with the process we're embarking on is faulty, and if these processes are faulty, we are not going to confirm it. They made it very clear. It's not going to sit in the National Assembly. My worry is that the INEC cannot prioritize. Fine, it's a constitutional provision. They've initiated it. People will say INEC should comply, but believe me sincerely, it is much more than that. You see, the kind of INEC is looking for over 200 billion naira to conduct the 2019 election, and you'll be spending about $1 billion naira for the recall of, a recall that will amount to futility. Then what are we talking about? And we've seen that it's more of a desperation on the part of the governor of a state to get him out of the way than for us to actually benefit from it as a nation. There is no moral benefit to Nigerians from the recall of Tinubu, and that's one thing we have to look at it. In everything, you have to put it into political, socio-political, and economic context. What are the implications? What are the gains for us as a nation? No gain, because the person who is initiating the call is also a governor that has not inspired Nigerians, a governor who has failed in every level of governance that we want to talk about. So both sides are just not inspiring enough for us to.
All right, let's look at the other stories making the rounds. We also had the big story that the Kogi State government did place a 5 million naira bounty for people to give information as regards the culprits of the killings that took place in the state. For you, is that the right way to stop that menace?
You see, we always do things wrongly, especially our leaders, our political leaders. It's as if some of them that are very intelligent, when they get there, it's like they forget some things behind. In the first place, how can you compensate people bringing money? Why not take that money and set up a security apparatus? For instance, maybe put a camera, CCTV everywhere, so that if you commit any crime, you can be traced. There is no time for me to. I will have bring an example of somebody that did the security of America. The person came to Abuja here to he was supposed to do the same thing to curtail Boko Haram activities, but they didn't allow him. So what I'm trying to say is that we actually have cameras that can be put in place to checkmate all these things instead of compensating people. What if somebody commits another crime? That means you'll be compensating everybody in the states.
All right, let's look at quickly, because of the want of time, time not really our friend. The Senate to pass the 2018 budget in April. Are you optimistic? Are you happy that finally the Senate is beginning?
No, there is nothing to be optimistic about the passage of budget. That's the responsibility of the National Assembly. We have a problem between the executive and the National Assembly, and we are at the receiving end as Nigerians, and this doesn't go well for our political system. And I just want to also let them know that I don't know if that section of the Constitution that has been amended, there should be a time frame through which the budget must be submitted and have been approved. I don't know if that has sealed the current constitutional amendment, but if it has sealed, I think it's a very welcome development for it. But the process so far obtainable is not good for us as a nation. We need to change. It's been like this since 1999. And also let me quickly add that what is going on even in the National Assembly, it's not easy for them. They're also trying to talk about introducing, the introduction of a Peace Corps bill to override the veto of the president. Also, in terms of
would that be realistic? Do you think it's going to see the light of day?
Yes, of course, they're going to succeed in overriding the veto of the president in terms of the Peace Corps bill. They're going to succeed in the reordering of election, and I am on the same page with them simply because, believe me sincerely, we are having a very autocratic executive that is so insensitive to a larger majority of the. I think it's a wise effort on the part of the National Assembly to override that. We are very much in support of that.
All right, the final story we're taking is the fact that 11 soldiers were allegedly killed in Kaduna, but the defense headquarters have come out to say it's not true. Those persons killed were just mere security agents, not the Nigerian army officers. For you, are you convinced, and do you think it's just the defense headquarters trying to play, damage control?
What led to it in the first place? That's what we should ask. And if the military accept, that means it's a big slap on the persons.
Okay.
They won't accept it. I trust them. If it's true, they know what to do. they will go behind and do what they know how to do best. But I think those things can be prevented. The reason why we have crisis all over the place to the extent of killing soldiers is because we don't engage the youth in positive activities. Because if you engage the youth, the Bible recognizes, I've not read the Quran, but it recognizes that the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So if somebody is idle, he will be thinking of evil. But when somebody is gainfully employed, like we that we are here, I don't think any reasonable person will come and carry us to go and commit crime anywhere.
All right, as we wrap up this weekend review edition for this week, we want to look at the main comment of the week and the most instructive issues that made the rounds. For you, which comment would you consider the most constructive comment for the week that gladdened your mind in any way?
So for me, as well, I've not really seen anyone. The only thing is just that I've only seen that the flip-flop on the part of the Minister of Communication. His comment should not just excite us, but it should call for concern. When he said Boko Haram like partners to government, that there's a moral burden on them for them to actually release the girls. It's a statement that we need to interpret as a nation. Moral burden on the part of terrorists because of the ceasefire agreement. When was the ceasefire signed? Who represented the Boko Haram to have a ceasefire? When was the talk about ceasefire? You have to be very careful. Such a kind of a statement is inimical to national security and inimical, to protecting lives and property, and very bad for the good governance of the nation.
All right, for you, what comment was your comment of the week, or who is your man of the week as regards issues that played out for the week?
Of course, I don't have any man of the week. The comment, I want to react to the president's comment. He was trying to blame Goodluck for everything, including his quick response. I think the reason why they brought in the new government is because people felt the last government failed. That was why they brought you. And you being the solution, you are not supposed to be blaming the other person. That is how every time they want to make comment, they refer to Goodluck. I think it's not good for our political scene. It's also a distraction to the present government. So they should concentrate and do what they vote them to do instead of blaming the other persons.
All right, that's how we can get a wrap on this week's edition of Weekend Review, looking at all the big stories that made the round from the 19th to the 23rd day of March 2018. I want to say a big thank you to my awesome guests. To my left, I've got the pro-democracy convener in the person of Ario Dare Atoye, who has been awesome with his very constructive analysis of all the issues. And also not forgetting fellow journalists like myself, talking about Chris Onopegu, who also doubles as a coach in the footballing circles, also giving his views and also the comments of the week. My name remains Anthony Momodu, saying thank you very much for joining me on Weekend Review on Television Nigeria. Make sure you place your comments on our social media handles as you see it on screen. And make sure you do not miss next weekend's edition because it promises to be awesome. Special thank you to the entire production team, Josh, Dan. We've got Mr. Noel, Donald, the studio manager, and everyone who made this production come out awesome. Special thanks to you, and my name is Anthony Momodu, saying have a lovely weekend.